Long, long ago, in a time before recorded history in the dark and evil lands of California, the tribe of illusionists known as Paramount Pictures announced an expedition. An artistic venture to create a work of art. The art was to bust blocks in the coming summer. They would cast the best minstrels that the Empire of Disney had yet to recruit, that they could afford, and they would call their great work Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. But fate had other plans for the men of Paramount. For at that same time, a great and terrible sickness swept over all the land, and the project of Paramount was considered lost forever to the depths of development hell. Until a year ago, a missive was delivered from the depths of the Paramount Fortress, delivered unto all corners of the land. The great work would be completed, and would be released in the spring of the next year. Hearing this, the people waited apprehensively for what they thought was sure to be a failure. But it wasn't. It was actually okay. Hello there and welcome back. I'm Nickel Neko, and today we'll be reviewing Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, or as I call it, D&D HaT. So, D&D HaT released on March 31st this year, 2023, and I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would. Long story short, if you want to spend your money to watch a new movie, D&D HaT is a fine candidate. There is no moral, political, or objectively critical reason not to go watch it. Is it great? Let's talk about it, but I am gonna spoil it.
Let's go!
Our adventure begins with our two primary protagonists in prison. I can't seem to remember their names, so instead I'll be referring to them by their class. Bard and Barbarian, or B&B for short. Get it? We're given an establishing sequence that shows the audience that the prison our heroes are in is quite remote and very high security. The writers also took the opportunity to establish a bit about our characters in these opening minutes through a fine combination of both showing and telling. Bard is friendly enough, doesn't shut up, and witty. Barbarian likes food, keeps to herself, and will absolutely mock the shit out of you if you make a pass at her. After some casual jail justice, B&B talk about their situation. Just a little though, not too much. And establish that they are up for parole soon, and that Bard has a plan because one of the parole board members is an a Birdman. We then cut to the parole hearing and we see that Birdman is not there. Bard asks about Birdman, gets brushed off, and launches into about 5 to 10 minutes of exposition and flashbacks explaining how they got there, interspersed with more inquiries about Birdman and if he'll show up. B&B's backstory is as follows. Bard was a spy guy that helped Fantasy MI6 arrest bad people. He fell in love and married a woman who he got pregante, and they started raising a child together. Bard wanted to better provide for his family, so one day, while arresting a mega-bad wizard, he also liberated some mega-bad wizard gold. Mega-bad wizards then track the money back to his house while Bard isn't there and kill his wife with a mega-bad blade. Wife can't be saved, but the baby is still fine, so mega-depressed Bard tries and fails to parent the child amidst the rolling blackout of his alcoholic coping. Barbarian finds Bard here and takes pity on the child of an alcoholic. Barbarian then helps get both the baby and Bard straightened out, and eventually the three become thieves in order to make ends meet. They team up with a generally incompetent sorcerer and a con man and become a party of thieves. Eventually, they take a contract from Bald Blue Wizard Lady to steal stuff from Fantasy MI6. Bard is very enthusiastic because Fantasy MI6 also has a tablet of wishes that he can use to resurrect his dead wife. Because mission is dangerous, Bard makes daughters stay at home. Mission goes to shit, B&B get captured, Wizard, Sorcerer, and Con Man get away, and that's why we're in prison. Eventually, Bard finishes his story. His judges murmur a bit amongst each other before placing a stamp on his papers. Just then, comes in. B&B are elated to see him, embracing him as old friends, though Mr. Birdman seems confused. In this confusion, B&B walk Birdman, noticing a lot of B names times in my script, towards a large round window and launch themselves out of it, escaping prison as their parole board desperately shouts that they had signed their release papers. With that, we start opening credits over an Indiana Jones-esque map sequence showing our heroes traveling back to their hometown to meet up with Bard's daughter, resident MacGuffin for the film, and Old Man Con Man, who I haven't mentioned really up to this point because I don't want to tell you the entire movie, just the important stuff. Returning to B&B's house, they find it abandoned. However, in a moment of clarity, Bard checks a secret nook and finds a note saying his daughter is in Waterdeep, so B&B head off to Waterdeep. In Waterdeep, B&B quickly realize that Scam Man has become the Lord, Baron, Mayor, whatever of the city. They take an audience with him to get back Bard's daughter, and after a minute or two of being reunited, they can tell something is off. Turns out, during the past 2 years, Scam Man convinced Bard's daughter that B&B had abandoned her for riches and lied about the true purpose of the Tablet of Wishes. Outraged, B&B go to leave, but Scam Man and Wizard Lady, the new Lords of Waterdeep, order them to be arrested and executed. During the execution, Barbarian frees herself and liberates an axe she liked from one of the guards while Bard cheers her on. After they escape, they begin formulating a plan to rescue daughter and steal the foundation of Make-A-Wish. Bard concludes that he needs to put together a team
with a little help from some old friends.
Yes, you're very smart. Shut up.
They head off to find the incompetent sorcerer from their original party who was able to get away. After recruiting/rescuing their sorcerer from a lynch mob intent on killing him for robbing them, Bard explains the situation and the party's needs. Sorcerer says he knows someone who can help, but she's an ex-girlfriend who left him because he made her sad. They go find the druid shape changer right as she liberates, I think, an elf from execution by Waterdeep forces currently engaged in some casual deforestation/genocide Coca-Cola Corporation style. She hears them out and eventually decides to join up, not for the loot or to help rescue some dude's brainwashed daughter, but to depose Scam Man from power as he's the aggressor in her people's struggle. Also, she has trust issues regarding humans. So, they send Druid Girl in animal form, a fly on the wall in the most literal sense, to go spy on Scam Man and Wizard Lady. Here she learns where Scam Man is keeping a bunch of golden treasures and what spell is protecting it, when Wizard Lady somehow detects that she is in the room. What follows is a CGI one-shot as Druid Girl makes her escape from the city, pursued by all the king's horses, all the king's men, and an angry bald wizard woman. I seem to have forgotten that part of the original nursery rhyme. Oh well. When she reports back, we learn that the vault is protected by an unbreakable spell, but that they could deactivate the spell with a magical helmet that was lost in a battle a very long time ago. Sorcerer isn't confident that he'll be able to attune to the helmet, but Bard gives him a private pep talk, and Sorcerer decides to tell the party that he can do it. The party leaves, Barbarian drops by her ex's house to get some of her stuff. Meanwhile, we cut to Wizard Lady, who has brought on a private contact friend from her homeland of secret evil necromancers to hunt down the party and kill them, and orders him to commit the cardinal villain sin of murdering her escort of city guard because they were responsible for Druid Girl's escape. Meanwhile, our party finally arrives at the battlefield and we get about 5-ish minutes of jokes as the party magically interrogates the corpses and piece together what happened to the helmet. Eventually they find out that the helmet was given to some hero of legend that everyone has heard of except Bard. They then find this hero of legend who hasn't aged a day, and he turns out to also be fantasy MI6. He calls out Bard for abandoning his oath, though he does this in a very non-hostile way, and teaches the party a little bit about his backstory and the history of the evil wizard Necromancerland. After this, we learn that he hid the helmet in the Underdark for safekeeping, so our party embarks on a treacherous quest to retrieve it. We get some jokes, we get some "there's still good in you, father, I feel it," and the party eventually is able to retrieve the helmet. While still in the Underdark, our party is set upon by the Necromancer Assassins. Hero of Legend guy defeats them in a neat fight. Assassins can't die though, we get a brief chase, big fat Chungus dragon appears, Assassins get smushed by Chungus, party escapes and winds up on a beach. There, Sorcerer tries and fails repeatedly to attune to the helmet. Eventually he gives up and narcs on Bard for deceiving the party. We get our mandatory mid-act inter-party crisis, Bard gives an inspiring speech, and the party comes up with a plan to get in even without the helmet, heist movie style. After overcoming a few bumps in their plan, it is revealed that Scam Man is making off with all the loot and treasure, and the daughter, while Wizard Lady turns all the people of the city into undead slaves. The party is captured and forced to participate in the mazy dungeon crawl arena games that are going on. Oh. And there is also a very subtle and tasteful Easter egg most people will not notice regarding the 1980s Dungeons & Dragons cartoon. Anyways, they escape the maze, find the boat, there's a brief fight with Scam Man, the truth is revealed to the daughter, deprogramming her, and the party sets off to make their escape. As they are celebrating their success, they look back to the city and see the magic bullshit of Wizard Lady beginning to turn the city's folk into zombie slaves, and so they decide to turn back and save the city. They draw everyone out of the arena via lust for gold. And they have an epic final battle with evil Wizard Lady. They eventually defeat her, but Barbarian is stabbed in the fight by the same kind of magic incurable bullshit dagger that killed Bard's wife. She dies, and Bard makes the decision to use his one-time only wish stone to bring her back to life instead of his wife. Cut to Scam Man in prison, expressing all this to the parole board. They deny his parole, he tries to escape in the same way B&B did at the start of the movie, fails, and credits. There's plenty to praise about this movie, though I feel it necessary to point out, most people who were waiting for this movie did not have very high expectations. I myself, as channel vets know, was not expecting anything approaching good. So I feel like a lot of the people, critics mostly, rating it above a 6 are doing so simply because it wasn't as shit as they expected, not because it actually merits the score. Now here's my little conspiracy theory. Paramount, the director, and the main writers all got together ahead of time and decided that they would fill the promo material for the movie with as much cliche virtue signal culture war bait as possible. Make every critic and commentator on the internet think that they have another Rings of Power on their hands. Then, they would write a competent script, all the while gaslighting the lower-level writers and talent into believing that the movie is emasculating and empowering, etc., so that they could further sell the lie. That way, when the movie finally releases, all the pundits roll up, notebooks in hand, and get treated to a traditional, classic take on the hero's journey. Boom! Positive reviews and 10 out of 10s from all the culture warriors for not being absolute dogshit, and praises and laurels from the political pundits for pushing favorable messages during marketing. Let's go! Free drinks and girls back at the island for celebration. On to the praises. So, I did actually really enjoy the more traditional cliche aspects of D&D HaT. I feel a good rule of thumb that has largely been forgotten by a lot of modern writers is KISS, keep it simple, stupid. HaT is pretty simple, but not in a lazy or condescending way. Rather, they use an adaptation of the hero's journey to develop our main character, Bard, as well as the rest of the party to a lesser degree in the background. I generally enjoyed the overall tone and humor. It wasn't nearly as mainstream neo-hipster D&D as I expected it to be. While not every joke landed, and I did roll my eyes a fair few times, I never found myself disassociating like I did in the beginning of TLJ.
I believe he's tooling with you, sir.
About his mother.
Open!
I don't really have anything specific to say about the movie here. The themes and character interaction / development and payoffs were all decent, and felt within the logic of the movie set up for us as the audience. And I feel none of it is really breaking any established setting rules either. I did especially enjoy Bard and Barbarian's interactions. Writing and direction and acting was all very solid in that regard. The overall highlight of the film for me would have to be at the very end. The evil wizard woman has been defeated, and the party celebrates briefly before realizing that Barbarian was stabbed with the Super Ultra Megadeth Knife 9000. Bard and daughter hold her close as she passes, all three singing together, and finally mourning when she's gone. Bard shares a look with his daughter, and we flash back to all the related scenes of B&B raising the daughter together, and Bard uses his one wish to bring Barbarian back from the dead. Now this is great for a few reasons. One, Bard has spent the entire movie trying to get this wishing stone so he can bring back his wife from the dead, convinced that it will make his family whole and heal his heart, and it's only in this final crucial moment that he realizes his daughter already had a mother, and that means more to her than a biological stranger that died before she could even remember her, sacrificing his wife for her mother. The other thing I liked about the scene is the writers trust the audience enough not to explicitly state this to them like other films might feel compelled to do. As I've, at this point, mentioned far too many times, I find HaT to be difficult to review, as it's not some great cinematic masterpiece that changed my life or anything, but it's also not a big stinky pile of poo that launches hundreds of teeny review channels into popularity. It's just fine, and because of that, most of my criticisms are what I would generally consider to be nitpicks. I'm still gonna bitch about them, just to understand that most of what follows does not really break anything, but I will tell you when we get to the ones that do. Starting off with nitpick number 1, it's a little unclear as to how HaT is intended to be interpreted. By that I mean, should I be observing the plot through the lens of these are all players at a table rolling dice and pretending to be these people? Or do I consider this as I would any other work of fiction and simply take the events to be as real as the world around me? It's not like a super big deal or anything. It didn't ruin the movie for me, it was just a question myself and a few other people who I've talked to have had regarding the movie. Next, the world scale and passage of time feels a little wonky in HaT. I think the writers and director didn't generally find it important, and so only really tell us the passage of time when they feel it's absolutely necessary. However, because of this, I don't know basic information that could serve to better immerse me and help me with the stakes of the movie. For example, our heroes escape the Icewind Dale in the beginning. It's a snowy, icy polar environment, and they travel to Waterdeep, which seems like a more Mediterranean climate. We're given a map sequence, but we have no idea how long the journey actually takes. And that's not the only instance of significant travel distance in this plot that goes unexplained. And because of this, I have no idea how close or far most areas are from Waterdeep, making it difficult to judge how contrived certain things are. For my next nitpick, let's talk about our villains, the Wizards of Thay. I just kind of feel like they could have and should have been more explored. Like I say, it doesn't really ruin the movie or anything for me. I just really would have appreciated having more of an addition to the world. Kind of following along that same vein regarding Paladin Man. He's a native Thayan who escaped their evil and now fights for good. I generally enjoyed him as a character. I do feel that if he had been a more traditional deity following Paladin rather than a 5th edition style Oath Paladin, it would have made for a stronger addition to his character. And of course, my final nitpick is simply the Underdark wasn't very dark. I know, scandalous, this whole section is stupid, but I felt like I needed to add it in, because it would be weird if I only had two criticisms for the movie. So, we're doing nitpicks, right? They had it nailed at the beginning of the sequence, but then they ended up lighting everything up with lava, and it just kind of became your generic Mount Doom level. Okay, now, for my two main criticisms. Mind you, these are real criticisms, not just nitpicks. So, first off here, we never really get a reason as to why Scam Man is so dedicated to destroying Daughter's relationship with Bard and becoming her new father figure, other than he likes how it feels to be a father? My brother in Christ, you are literally the Lord of Waterdeep, most powerful man in the area, and skilled in smooth talking. Just go have sex and make a baby, you creep! In all seriousness, Scam Man's obsession with Bard's daughter is the primary driver of the plot and conflict, and to my memory, we never really get any kind of explanation or exploration of his motive for it beyond that one quick line. I just feel it needed more time and development in the plot. The second criticism comes from a scene in our mid-act low point. Now, the party has just escaped from the Underdark with the magic helm of MacGuffin. Sorcerer tries and fails all day long to attune to it before finally giving up in frustration, and revealing to the rest of the party that Bard had lied to them about Sorcerer's ability to attune to the item. This causes the rest of the party to all dress down Bard, calling him selfish, deceitful, and all other manner of insults to his character. This makes Bard then give a rousing speech, and the gang all decides to go ahead with the plan anyways. Now, my problem here is, of our 3 party members, Two of them are fully aware that Bard had lied in service to rescuing his child from a con man who derives pleasure from grooming her and is actively trying to isolate her from friends and family. Barbarian and Sorcerer have zero excuse to call Bard selfish for trying to rescue his daughter and resurrect his dead wife, so that, his daughter can get to know her mom. Furthermore, the only reason Bard lied in the first place is because Druid Girl is such a flaming racist, she basically refused to help on any moral grounds, and was only willing to help because Bard lied about Sorcerer's capabilities. This is the only scene in which I see any real emasculation, and it lasts about 45 seconds, and it's so poorly written that anyone in the audience with critical thinking skills that have been paying attention should be able to see it for the contrived bullshit that it is. But other than that stuff, the movie's alright. D&D HaT is an interesting case. As I continually remind you, the marketing of the movie made it seem like it was going to be highly politically motivated. A thinly veiled ad or PR campaign for D&D and Wizards of the Coast, made by people with barely a passing notion of what D&D is. What we got was a competently written, traditional fantasy adventure tale that happens to be set in the Forgotten Realms. Now, it is for this reason I feel that most reviewers have compromised results when reviewing the movie. By all accounts, most people were expecting the worst thing since the dragons hit the Twin Spires. When we didn't get that, I think everyone was very gung-ho to shower this movie with praise. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 90% from critics and a 93% from audiences. Metacritic gave it a 72 from critics and a 7.6 out of 10 from audiences, and IMDb also gave it a 7.6 out of 10. Randos I shared Discord servers with highly recommended it, and my family also generally enjoyed it, with two of them expressing interest in D&D after seeing it. Yes, I am aware that referencing, I know this one guy who thinks it's good is some form of logical fallacy. Cut me a break. Finally, YouTube reviewers such as Critical Drinker, Shadiversity, and The Night's Watch, and Angry Joe all rated the movie at or above a 7 out of 10. The movie has been quite favorably received, helped along by the fact that it had limited competition, is following some of the worst MCU and Disney content seen in years, and is typically compared to its far inferior 2000 D&D movie, and has undoubtedly done wonders for WotC, Hasbro, and D&D as a brand in the eyes of their investors, warranted or no. D&D HaT is mid. Okay, that sounds harsh. Like I said, I don't think it's bad, I wouldn't go out of my way to avoid it, and I wouldn't be harshly critical of the intelligence of anybody who liked it. That said, I do feel that rating it higher than like a solid average, a 5 out of 10 if you will, is excessively praiseworthy for what is a bog-standard, generally competent hero's journey story set in the world of Dungeons & Dragons. Most of the movie's praise and accolades come from the context in which it exists, and not from its own features and merits. The movie has things it fails to explain, things it forgets, things it doesn't need. It's far from perfect, and in the sea of high praise it's receiving, I feel the need to dissent somewhat, even if only to be one of the few critical voices. It's not bad, and if Hollywood takes a page out of D&D HaT's book and emulates it more often in the right ways, I believe it will only be beneficial to the industry as a whole. However, just like liberal, suburban, millennial, Starbucks drinking, avocado toast eating, participation trophy having babies, if you don't tell D&D HaT where it fails and where it needs to improve, it will never grow to achieve greatness.
In today's America, no child ever loses. There are no losers anymore. Everyone's a winner. No matter what the game or sport or competition, everybody wins. Everybody wins, everybody gets a trophy. No one is a loser. No child these days ever gets to hear those all-important character-building words, "You lost, Bobby." "You lost, you're a loser, Bobby." They miss out on that. You know what they tell a kid who lost these days? "You were the last winner." A lot of these kids never get to hear the truth about themselves until they're in their 20s, when their boss calls them in and says, "Bobby, clean the shit out of your desk and get the fuck out of here, you're a loser. Get the fuck out of here." You know? Of course, Bobby's parents can't understand why he can't hold a job. In school, he was always on the honor roll. Well, what they don't understand, of course, is that in today's schools, everyone is on the honor roll. Everyone is on the honor roll because, in order to be on the honor roll, all you really need to do is to maintain a body temperature somewhere roughly in the 90s.
Hi there, thanks for watching that video. I hope you were able to enjoy it, or at least don't hate me too much after watching it. If you did enjoy it, please feel free to, like, subscribe, comment, all that. And if you didn't enjoy it, I'm a small channel with nothing better to do, so feel free to just drop a comment and tell me where I lost you. And, if it's something I care to work on and do better about, I'll do better. Also, that's, channel interaction. I love that. Anyways, I got more big stuff coming soon. I do, of course, stream on my Twitch channel, which can be found in both the description and on my About page on my YouTube channel. And yeah, thanks for watching and have a good day.